Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Indira, and today I'm joined by Isabelle Boffey. She's a very talented New Balance athlete who recently ran the Olympic qualifying standard. So she's got the Olympics in her sights. And so today we'll be talking around all things qualification and selection, but also some key topics such as the menstrual cycle and her training. Izzy's a very level-headed and down-to-earth athlete, and that may be one of the reasons why she's been able to have the unheard of continued success and longevity in the sport that she's had in terms of years of achievement. So be sure to stick around for some hot tips. Okay, as always, please be sure to give the podcast a follow and a rating if you've been enjoying it. It really helps to give the podcast credibility so I can bring you guys the guests you want to hear from. Alright, let's get into the episode. Hi, Issy. Welcome to the podcast. And how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. And can you briefly introduce yourself as an athlete?
Hi, I'm Isabelle Boffey. I am a 800-meter athlete, GB athlete. I have competed for Great Britain across all age groups. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a class athlete for sure. And so if we just start off with a couple of questions to get things going, what for you has been your most significant running moment or running memory?
For me, it was my sub-2 performance last year. It was my first time breaking that sort of all-important 800-meter barrier. It was after a pretty difficult British champs for me. So it was, such a high after a difficult 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. It's always even better sometimes when you get those highs after, maybe a more of a low. And so for you, what's the next biggest goal or thing that you're hoping to achieve?
Obviously, it's Olympic year this year, so I think that's kind of on everyone's radar at the moment. I have the qualifying time from last year, but obviously there's a lot of competition in the 800-meter women's at the moment for GB, so it'll be tough to get on the team in the first place, let alone actually competing at the Olympics. So that's sort of my aim at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's definitely something we can talk about a bit later on, actually, that whole selection process and situation surrounding the Olympics. And for you at the moment, are there any topics that you feel particularly strongly about within sport? Or if you had to pick something, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I think the whole qualification process is really confusing for some people if you haven't been through it before. It's different in every single sport. Obviously, this is an individual versus team, and the qualification sort of process. If you're not in it, you don't really know how it works, and even if you are in it, it's really hard to sort of keep up to date with what's going on. So that's definitely something that I'm always keen to talk about. I'm a female athlete as well, so that also makes like my life different to everyone else's, and that's always something that like I'm always keen to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely two very hot and relevant topics, I'd say. Okay, and so what's the number one piece of advice that you give to your younger self?
Um, Definitely just to like enjoy and embrace every single moment that I have. Like I was really lucky to be able to compete in some amazing places throughout my junior career in running. When I did my first ever GB competition, I was super not naive, but super just like amazed by every single experience I had and had no idea how any of it worked. I just got told one day, oh yeah, if you win this race, you might be able to go to the European youth. And I was like, oh, okay. I definitely think that like that sort of, enjoyment that came out of it, which like produces opportunities for me is like super important.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it really is incredible to have had that kind of range of experiences, especially from such a young age. And I think that is something that is really unique about you as an athlete. You've had that kind of continued success all the way through. So, you're clearly doing something very right. So that would be great to talk about a bit later on. And so maybe if we kick things off with that sub-2 performance kind of over the summer, that was really significant. Talk us through, that experience for you.
Yeah, definitely. So it was 2 weeks after British Champs, and British Champs for me hadn't been super successful. So we had a few races lined up, but not loads. And obviously there was the World Championships. So when the World Championships happens, like there's not loads of races going on at the same time because, you know, athletes are out the world. So they're not going to hold any sort of meetings at the same time. So yeah, I'd got into this Madrid race. I'd never done it before. It was a silver meeting, but those had been incredibly fast throughout the season. Like, you know, there's people, you're doing the same times that you're getting out in diamond leagues at silver meetings, so you can tell that the standard in 800 is huge. So I went in with a pretty open mind. I'd actually briefly hurt my hamstring that week. I personally have many niggles with my hamstrings, so it was something that we were managing, and I just decided I'm still going to race. Like, I'm just going to enjoy the time and give it a go. I was pretty hesitant, but I thought, why not? It honestly just blew me out the water. Like, I knew I was capable of running sub 2. I had been all season. I've been so close all season. I think I'd ran 2.00 point something about 8 times across the season. And for me, I knew it was coming. It just was a matter of when rather than if. So I was just, honestly, if you ever watched it, you can just hear me like screaming in the background when I see the time come up on the screen, because it was the exact Olympic time. It was the running sub 2 for the first time and getting Olympic qualifying standards. It was just amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely incredible achievement. I mean, to run bang on that Olympic qualifying time, that's just fate, really, isn't it? It's just meant to be. Were you expecting the Olympic qualifying time at all? Was that on your mind?
I knew I could do it, but I definitely wasn't expecting it on the day. I went into that race sort of more focused on, just get round and try and have a really positive race after a disappointing British champs, to then come away with like my best race of the season, best time. That race got me into Worlds ultimately. So, it was, a big achievement for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, that would have required a lot of mental strength, coming off a performance that you are maybe less happy with. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of, or hearing a lot of resilience here, 8 times and racing so many, being so close. What kept you motivated, and what do you think helped you to keep a level head when you then went into that race?
Yeah, I think my coach and I had a discussion after British champs. There were so many reasons that weekend why it didn't go great. We just sort of decided, well, it's Olympic year, the year after, you have a whole entire rest of the half of the season to get an Olympic qualifying time. So why not focus on that rather than focus on the negatives? I had a few days of just being really upset, and then we just said, okay, we're gonna leave that in the past, and we're gonna move forward. And I think I just did 2 weeks of training, and just sort of it was a quite relaxed environment, because at that point there wasn't any sort of pressure to do well. It was just, let's get the races done and see how fast we can run and enjoy it. So I definitely think that being a bit more relaxed helped in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything in particular you do to relax, or you do when you're just having a bit of a downtime?
I'm definitely, I think, if you've never done a international like sort of competition before, you don't really know what it's like. It sometimes can be quite glamorous. You can go to really fun places, but sometimes you just spend the entire day traveling, spend the entire day sitting in your hotel room, and then you race, and then you spend the next day traveling again. So it's definitely not all glamour. So there's a lot of like watching Netflix and like reading books and things like that. But actually, I enjoy those like type of things. So that's sort of like how I just spend my downtime.
No, that's really good to know that works out well. And in terms of that, they're, racing abroad and doing these international competitions, what would you say have been the biggest benefits for you in kind of having that greater range of competitions?
I think just having more options is always great. With the new point system that the World Athletics introduced, it's also always good to be at those competitions, because they do get you more points, like regardless of how fast you run. I can do a local meet and I can run a 1:59, and I potentially could get more points at running 2 minutes flat at a silver meet or a gold meet. Just that's how it works. But obviously with the 800 at the moment with Great Britain, like the points are a little bit less useful because there are so many of us that have qualifying times, so it's more on British champs. But yeah, no, it's great to have the international competitions, just have a bit more choice. But I also definitely, you know, always do try to utilize things like BMCs, just because we're really lucky to have it in the UK. And I think that despite the fact that they're not silver and gold meets, they're still producing sub 2 minute performances all the time for the 800 meters. So it just goes to show that like the quality can be there. You just need to, you know, get in the right race and have the right people around you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, things like the BMC really are quite great. And so you touched on the point system there, that you mentioned silver and gold meets. Can you talk us through what that sort of means and what it means for you as an athlete?
Yeah, so basically World Athletics, I think a couple of years ago now, introduced this point system essentially, with the aim that, you know, you can get qualifying times for Worlds, Olympics, Europeans, but you can also get points depending on how you've run throughout the season. So it's your top 5 performances, with up to 2 indoor performances included as well. You get points based on the time, the position, the level of the meeting, and then these all accumulate, so you get like a ranking spot. So you know, if I'm, you know, running a sub 2 performance at 5 gold or diamond league meets, you will probably be very highly ranked. I mean, you'll still get loads of points for running. If I ran a sub 2 performance at 5 BMCs across the year, you know, I'd still be very highly ranked, but you do just get more points doing those bigger competitions. And then essentially their aim is to have the top 45 athletes on that ranking system at the Olympics or at Worlds. So then it means that like the top athletes are performing against each other all the time. Obviously, in Great Britain, there will be, I think at one point there was up to 6 of us in that top 45, and only 3 are allowed per country. So it's just one of those things where some countries, if you're in that top 45, you are going to go to that major champs, whereas for other countries, I'd say probably at least GB, I'm sure the US is very similar, and you know, if they have multiple people in the top 45, they won't get to go.
Gosh, it's so interesting, isn't it? The way they do these things, and you know, it's questionable. I mean, you can see what they're trying to do, but at the end of the day, you know, somewhere like Great Britain, there is such a high standard that is really, really difficult because you've got some of your top athletes who aren't potentially going. Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think so. If you look at the what's it called? The selection policy. That's
Yeah.
that's what I was looking for. Selection policies, like we have like in Great Britain, we have what's called a discretionary spot, which basically means that the top 2 are champs, if they have the time, get to go. And then the third spot is a discretionary spot based on a list of like 10 things. That includes ranking points. So, you know, say if it was between 2 athletes and they were the same on everything, but one of them was ranked higher than the other, that gives them the edge. So to an extent, it does make a difference. And yeah, so you know, it's important, but it can be difficult when, you know, you're trying to get into these like really, really big races, and they're really hard to get into because there are hundreds of people trying to get into each one. So yeah, like it's a decent system, I think, because it definitely means that it's not just one performance and you get to do everything. It's a whole string of performances that really shows your consistency, but at the same time, it's not beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess, you know, reliability is important when you're sending someone out there. Have you ever been in a position where you've not made it into a race that you've wanted to?
Yeah, definitely. Like it happens all the time. I tried to race after Worlds last year and couldn't get into anything. Honestly, because you know, some of it's who you know, some of it's that they reserve spots for whatever home nation they have. So obviously in the UK, the only meets we have this year are the London Diamond League, which it's a London Diamond League. Everyone wants to be at that meet, regardless of what country they're from. So those sort of 1 or 2 spots that may or may not be reserved for GB athletes are really hard to get anyway. So yeah, it's definitely a difficult one because like, you know, there's so many athletes that can run the same time as me, and there's so many athletes that are 0.1 or 0.2 different to me, and it doesn't make too much of a difference sometimes when you're trying to get into races. So yeah, I definitely feel like it's very difficult to see all these great races happening, and not sort of having the opportunity to do all of them.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And in terms of, I guess, then if we move on and kind of extend it into the qualification process for the Olympics. So, of course, you've got the qualification time, you've done the hard bit, but actually getting into the Olympics, what's the next steps, and yeah, what barriers could be there?
Yeah, so British Champs is the big one. It is the Olympic trials. I think that's what it is. I've done the Olympic trials in 2021 before, and I didn't have the time or anything. It wasn't something that was like super on my radar. But this year, having the time, if I come top two, I get to go. There is no sort of questions asked about it. I have the qualifying time. I get to go. There's a slight process of proving form, which can be seen as quite ambiguous sometimes, because often proving form is just proving that you can do the qualifying time again, which I've done it last year, but I probably still have to run a similar time this year again. And then if you come top two at the trials, and then there's a discretionary spot, it often does go to whoever comes third, depending on their race history and things like that. But I last year for Worlds came fifth. Then I ran a sub 2 minute performance and ended up getting on the Worlds team, just because of like a whole series of factors, which basically meant that I was the eligible athlete at the time. So yeah, I aiming to come top two at trials. I think that's what the majority of people will be doing.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the sort of thing most people are going to give a shot at, and no, definitely be wishing you all the absolute best with that. And I guess in terms of that racing, you are someone who consistently does perform and perform well at major championships. And I guess as things go through, especially with, these Olympic trials looming, how are you managing the pressure, or how have you managed the pressure? And what do you think allows you to execute at these high stakes races?
Yeah, definitely. I have a great race history. I've been in a position where I've been in loads of finals before. I've been in a position where I haven't made the final before. So I've sort of had that experience of having done both of those things. And the pressure is a lot. I think you can get pressure from loads of different places, like even just from giving yourself pressure. And it's just sort of, having the mindset and the mental attitude of being able to change that pressure into just performance. Most athletes are going to have pressure at some point in their life, regardless of their sport. And you've got to use that pressure in a positive way. Otherwise, it will just consume you.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything that you've done, or did you ever have a sort of switch of mindset where you found the secret to using that pressure in a positive manner?
Nothing specific. I think that it's definitely a mix of like my history with racing and my attitude towards it and my experiences, and that winning feeling, or that like positive race experience. You just got to really hold on to that and remember that when you're going into the next race, and you're just sort of trying to emulate that all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And so I guess if we talk about, maybe some of the factors that have enabled you to have such a kind of longevity in your success, what do you think's led to you being able to kind of consistently improve over the years? I mean, if you look through your history, your 800 PB has gone down year and year and year. I think bar 2013, you've shaved time off every single year, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've always had when I was younger, I started training in like a middle distance group per se, in 2013 roughly, I think, maybe 2012. So I have sort of been doing this for years. But before I came to university, I trained 4 times a week, didn't train every day. I was doing 4 sessions a week. So I wasn't doing runs, I wasn't doing gym, I wasn't doing any of these like extra things. So yeah, definitely when I went to university, it was a massive jump. But actually, my coach is amazing. Like, he was in contact with me for so long before I even started university, and it has been quite a gradual process for me. Like, I think changing everything all at once can be super overwhelming, can actually lead to things like injuries. So, you know, I've only just really worked up to doing what most people would call a long run, and things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely for me. Every year I've not changed something like massive, but I've improved. I've added an extra bit of this to train, an extra bit of that. You know, I've added all these little bits that ultimately make me a more successful athlete. And I think what people don't realize is that you can have one amazing winter and have an amazing summer as well. But it does take years to build like a proper base fitness. And, you know, every single year I've been going, I've started with a better base fitness. And that just means ultimately that all the training I'm doing, I'm just like slowly notching it up.
Yeah, textbook way to reach your potential by the sounds of it. And so in terms of, I guess, you know, you mentioned there increasing things too quickly can lead to things like injuries and stuff. Have you ever had any injuries or any setbacks along the way?
Yeah, I mean, my one major injury was I had inflamed fat pad in my knee, which is basically just I had this in, so I got it after British Champs in 2019. I was actually out of action until about March 2020, which obviously at that point was when COVID hit and we were all indoors. So I spent the majority of my COVID, you know, I did my first run, proper run, I'd say, in March. I spent the majority of my winter on the bike, which actually was great. You know, I definitely think I learned the value of cross training and how important that was, because I still went out and won the Bucks 400 meters indoor race in 2020, which was in February, off about 2 weeks maybe of like semi running. Yeah, I definitely think I found that a super difficult process. A lot of the time, you know, you break a bone and you have 8 weeks off, and then you can do this, and this, and it's a very simple step. But sometimes there, especially like with most, I think a lot of athletes will relate to this. You know, injuries that are caused by weaknesses or injuries that are caused by small muscles doing the wrong thing at the wrong time can be so difficult to fix and to be pain free and to manage and things like that. So it was definitely a really difficult time for me. I really struggled, you know, with the sort of, there was no set program for me to get back to running. But, you know, I do have a great team around me. I'm really lucky. I'm at the university still, despite I'm not a student anymore. I'm an alumni now, and they still support me. I still train there. I'm still running with the entire university group. You know, I still feel like sometimes I'm in university despite not actually doing any formal academic work. So yeah, it's been great to have them backing me, and they've been, you know, supporting me since 2018 when I started uni.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. You know, it's so important to have the right people and the right systems around you. And no, it seems like the universe is definitely with you. I mean, maybe causing a pandemic to give you a chance to recover might be a bit extreme, but no. And in terms of, you know, you mentioned they're getting into the cross training, and is that something you've then kind of incorporated since? And have you ever had any, I guess, re-flare ups of this injury?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super aware of it. I know how it's like. I feel like I've done so much rehab. I've done so much like research on it, so I do know like why it now happens if it does happen again. It hasn't actually happened again since. So like properly since, I'd say, like sometimes I go, oh, I'm feeling my knee, and it would just be like, okay, don't do a run today. Jump on the bike, and you'll be fine. So it's just sort of knowing that, you know, missing one run is not going to kill me. I can do a cross train, I can do a bike instead, and actually it's having the same impact on my body. And it's you know, I don't personally do 50-mile weeks. I have a very short mileage because in my heart I'm an 8:15. I'm not an 8:15 runner. I'm an 400 meter runner. So I definitely think that cross training is a big part of my like performance.
Yeah, definitely. Is 8:15 the to be future for Issy?
For me, 1,500 meters is a long way, and you have to run so fast for so long. So
Mind you,
I'm
your
not
slow is
sure.
probably
I'm
everyone
not
else's
sure.
fast.
Yeah, I would love to do some more fours. definitely it's hard to fit them into the season because you're trying to get qualifying times and things like that. So, and obviously I probably have to learn to use blocks properly, which is a whole deal in itself. But yeah, definitely, do enjoy doing the shorter distance as well as the 8.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the kind of, I guess, when did the 400 come in, and how do you feel about the two different distances and their future potential for you?
Yeah, like I mean, I've always loved doing fours. I've always been, I started off as a sprinter when I was really, really young. So I've always sort of been into the shorter distances, but ultimately I was much better at the like semi-longer stuff. I think I'm not sure when my first 400 was. I did the relay in at under 20s, I think, in Boras. Basically, I put my name forward for it. I said, I think I can run a really quick 4. At university, I then did my Bucks 4x4 and did a really solid performance. I think that got me into the team for the under 20 European Championships. And we absolutely smashed that. That was like an amazing race. So kind of from there, I've definitely shown my potential in the race, but ultimately I haven't been able to do a season of it. I haven't been able to, really solidify my individual time outside of relays. So it's definitely something that I'd love to do a bit more of.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting to hear. And I guess if we circle back a tiny bit and continue on the sort of training side of things, it seems like you're someone who's got great balance, a great approach, a great mindset. Can you talk us through, say, a typical training week for you and maybe what you consider the most important aspect?
Yeah, so I am doing currently 6 days a week. Most days are double days, and that's either like a run in the morning, then a session in the evening, or a session and a gym or something. So I personally still consider that a double day, but I know a lot of people have like double run days and then a session and gym days, and they don't say it's the same thing. But for me, if I'm training twice, I'm training twice.
I think so. I
Yeah.
agree.
So I'm sort of doing a mix of gym, tempo, shorter runs. I'd say like up to 5 mile runs. My longest run at the moment is 7 miles, which I don't do super often. But I can do if I'm on camp or things like that.
Yeah.
We do like 3 sessions a week. That's a mix of like grass and track sessions and tempo work. And then I have Sundays off, which is not a lot of people do. A lot of people do Fridays off, but I love having a Sunday off. I think it's just sort of really nice to have like a weekend day off as well, especially when you get a bit older and all your friends start working and things like that. And it's really nice to sort of be able to share that day with my friends who also have it off.
Yeah, definitely. And what sort of things might you get up to on a Sunday day off?
My favorite thing to do is just go out for dinners and go out for lunches and things like that. Like definitely, love a little sweet treat every now and then and things like that. So that's generally how I spend my time off.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. No better way to spend it. And in terms of, I guess, also training camps and stuff, is that something? I know you've recently been out in Murcia in Spain. How do things change when you're on a camp, and how regularly do you go on them?
Yeah, I absolutely love camps. It's definitely a really big mental reset. You sort of get away from the busyness that is being at home. You don't sort of realize, when you're at home, it's just you're still focused on training because ultimately I'm a professional athlete and that is my job. But when you're on camp, that's what you're there for. That's what you're doing 24/7. You're really focusing on that. So you're not doing all these social things, which are really fun and I like really, really enjoy. But it's nice sometimes just to have a sort of mental reset, go and do a solid 3 weeks of pure training, and then you come back into sort of reality essentially, and have to do all these other things on top of training. So it's just I generally go 3 times a year, maybe 4, if we go like before a championship in the summer, but that's generally not as long, I'd say. I go before Christmas, after Christmas, and April, which I think is pretty typical for a professional athlete. Obviously, I've got the time to be doing that all the time, so yeah, it's great.
Yeah, can't complain. What's your favorite destination or type of camp then?
Um, I've been, I've not been to loads of places. We go to Mercy every year, which I love. It's somewhere that not loads of people go to, but we actually have a brilliant setup there. I went the first time I went was when Hannah England, my coach's wife, was still an athlete. So I went with her, and I was really young. Like I felt really young. I was really naive. I was 18. Never been on a camp before ever. So that was definitely a new experience for me, which I absolutely loved. And it's definitely a great place. We've got an amazing physio out there that we see, and beautiful trails, and like the sun is shining. It's just, yeah, a brilliant break to go out in January after the miserable cold and wet that you get in the UK. So I absolutely love that. But I also do often go to Potchefstroom in South Africa, which is brilliant, just because you get the added benefit of the heat and the altitude. It's not so high that as an 800 meter run I'd struggle loads, but it's high enough that I'm still getting the benefit all the time. And it's a great little university town that we stay in, with sort of great resources and things like that. So yeah, I definitely love both of them. They're my favorites.
No, that's really great to hear, and that definitely sounds like the perfect combination for an athlete. And so, of course, you're a pro athlete, you're a New Balance athlete. When did this come about, and how have you found the transition, I guess, sort of post uni and being a full-time professional athlete?
Yeah, so in my sort of first year of university, I got contacted by the head of New Balance. At that point, I was just a university athlete. I wasn't sort of under the impression that I was, going to become a sponsored athlete then and there. But yeah, after that, I spoke to my coach. I joined an agency. My agent, Dave Scott, sort of sorted all these things out for me. And then I got my first contract, which was great. As a 18-year-old, I was quite young and I was still in university, so it was just really nice to have that sort of backing from a really big company, and they had a great belief in me to want to sponsor me. So that was definitely a confidence boost. And yeah, I've been with them ever since. Yeah, I absolutely love New Balance. They are so supportive, and the community that we have is absolutely brilliant.
Oh no, that's really brilliant to hear. And how did you find, I guess, signing on at 18, that is quite young. Did you feel any pressure at any point, or has it kind of helped you in any specific ways, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've never sort of felt any sort of pressure with that side of things. I think anything I've got has always been sort of a benefit for me. But yeah, honestly, like you as an athlete, a professional athlete, like you don't realize you go through so much kit, like trainers and spikes, and having that almost privilege to go, well, I don't have to pay for my trainers and spikes. Like that is what my kit sponsor provides me. It's like honestly so amazing. Like I don't know how I would cope without it, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got a favorite pair of shoes that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I love my 860s. New Balance 860s are my like easy running shoe of choice. I've been wearing them for years now. I wear like every single version. Yeah, definitely that is my go-to. And if you're going casual, 550s, the New Balance 550s are, well, they're the hot shoe at the moment. Everyone absolutely loves them. I walk down the street and I'm wearing the same trainers as 5 other people that I see. But yeah, no, absolutely love them.
Oh, there we go, guys. Any shoe recommendations for New Balance? And of course, you've also mentioned, you've got that support, or you have had the support from the University of Birmingham as well. How's kind of the support system worked for you over the years, and what kind of things have you benefited from the most?
Yeah, I definitely think that the University of Birmingham has one of the most amazing scholarship systems. I'd say of all the universities in the country, they really tailor it to you as an athlete and what you need and what you require. And I went in sort of fresh 18-year-old. I just got a new coach in Luke Gunn, who was head of athletics at the time. And yeah, like he really helped the transition for me. Like everyone was super supportive. I was learning loads of new things. I was meeting physios, had an S&C coach. I had like lifestyle mentor, performance sort of mentors and things like that. And yeah, honestly, I think I speak about this quite a lot. I cannot praise University of Birmingham enough, to be honest, of how supportive and amazing they are with me, and how much they have like benefited me through my athletics career. I definitely think that they give me so much structure that you don't realize you need until you don't have it anymore. Honestly, it is so amazing to be able to just have everything in one place, know that if I ever needed physio, if I ever needed specific areas of support, they would move everything to make sure that I get it, to be able to perform to the best of my ability. And they've never let me down once. Essentially, it's been brilliant.
That is really positive to hear. That really is. And you say they're kind of having the structure and not having the structure. I'm guessing then that sort of post leaving uni there might have been a readjustment phase in terms of what your full-time just pro athlete life looks like. How's that been?
Definitely, I absolutely love the lifestyle. I know that a lot of people do work and are a professional athlete at the same time, which I just admire so much. It's absolutely incredible. I was a student athlete for a long time, and long time. I was a student athlete for 4 years through COVID as well. So that was definitely an experience. But the university supported me so much through that. And I think they definitely made that transition easier. Being a student athlete is hard. But I had a lot of benefits from being on the scholarship system and things like that, in terms of assignments and support from my tutors and things like that. Now that I am finished university, so I'm in my second year of full-time athletics, the university still support me. There's a talent hub that's based at the university, so that's England Athletics, British Athletics, have some support that go through there. And then the UB scholarship system supports me on an alumni basis, which basically means that my services and things like that I get from the university haven't really changed. The only thing I've lost are the academic support, which obviously I don't need anymore. So honestly, the support in that sort of sense hasn't changed. It's just you lost the academic side, which actually can be really stressful. University is really hard. It's meant to be. It's a degree. So it was definitely. I really enjoyed it. It was a big change, but I really enjoyed. Well, I do still really enjoy being a full-time professional athlete.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And what do you sort of fill that additional time with now?
You just have time to do everything. I'm not squeezing in a run in between my lectures or getting up really early to do like S&C and things like that, which is definitely a benefit. And then I spend a lot of my time, I do a lot of baking and reading and things like that, and doing all those little things that you might necessarily not have had time for. Good nutrition, good food, you can spend longer cooking and things like that, which is really nice.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess kind of on those 1% for you, what's the most important 1%?
Probably sleep. I absolutely love sleeping, which is a weird thing to say, but I'm an avid napper. Like, I nap all the time. You're training twice a day, you are exhausted all the time. People with jobs, I don't know how they do it. It's so impressive. Sleep is such a valuable time to be recovering. And I definitely think it makes such a difference when you're an athlete.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's so many studies and the stats are absolutely shocking in terms of the impact it can have. I guess if we move now towards, you mentioned female athlete related stuff earlier as a point of passion, and, definitely is a big area. For you, what would you say is maybe the biggest setback that you've experienced being a female athlete, or, along those lines?
Yeah, I think being a female athlete, you see the word athlete, and it's vastly different from being a male athlete. You've got to deal with so many other things. For me, like, especially my menstrual cycle is such a big factor. I was sort of first really impacted by it when I was 17, at the Commonwealth Youth Games. I was in sort of a lot of pain, in terms of things like cramps and stuff like that. And it was sort of the first time where I realised that it was impacting me a lot more than I thought it was. There were some points when I was 17 where I couldn't train because I was, on my period, too exhausted, too much in pain. And it's a lot more common than people think. Ended up, going to the doctor and having loads of tests, things like that. It still affects me today. It's one of the things that, if have to change my training. I have to, you know, essentially give myself that sort of mental break in terms of don't always have the best session when I'm on my period, or I am more emotional, or I, you know, can't sometimes run as fast. You know, it's actually so it really just impacts your entire body. And I don't think a lot of people don't talk about it often because it's so individualized. So I have friends who have a menstrual cycle for 3 days and they barely feel it, they barely bleed, and they're completely fine. On the other hand, but people like me, I have it from anywhere to 7 to 10 days. You know, you're losing a lot of blood, you are really tired, really cranky, sort of just really, really like lethargic and drained. So that's definitely something that I really have to take, you know, on board when I'm like doing my training and things like that. And I've definitely been really like privileged to have a coach who is super, super open and very happy to talk about those things. You know, his wife was a professional athlete for many, many years, which I think definitely helps. You know, because they will have had open communication about it. And I've never once been hesitant to say, look, I'm on my period today. Can we change this in training? Or I'm on my period today. This is my first day. Can we do this or this or this? And he's never sort of once questioned me on it. Yeah, he's someone that definitely does loads of research and things like that on it. And you know, my S&C coach does a lot of research on menstrual cycles and how that impacts training, which is like really, really beneficial for me. And yeah, I definitely think I have loads of support in that area, which is great. But yeah, I don't think it's spoken about enough. And yeah, I've actually loved seeing Jasmine Sawyers speak about it quite a lot in the media last year, which was really actually quite inspiring. But yeah, really great.
Yeah, no, definitely it is. It's so important to talk about these things. And I think, you know, you make so many great points, especially kind of the individual element of it. You know, it really can manifest so differently. And in terms of kind of maybe things you've done over the years, have you found any ways to kind of, I guess, manage it in some respects, or found any ways of keeping the pain at bay a bit? Or what specific changes do you tend to make in terms of training when it is causing problems?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many avenues you can go down. I've been down a lot of them. You know, there's a lot of hormonal contraception out there, which does change your menstrual cycle, but also does impact your entire body. So you have to be aware of like both of those things. I did biomedicine as my degree, so I definitely think I'm more informed in that sort of sense about how I'm impacted by things like hormonal contraception. You know, there's a lot of taking painkillers at the right time and stretching more, or you know, eating right and things like that. And I just definitely think that it's very individual and it does take time to work it out. And the doctors aren't going to have every single answer that you are looking for at the end of the day, because of how individualized the situation is. I definitely sympathize with doctors that don't know everything, because there is just so much to know. But also at the same time, you know, you've got to advocate for yourself if you are having extreme reactions, you know, during a menstrual cycle. It's definitely something that is worth speaking to a doctor about and like getting their advice, because they always have something to say and you can always give your input and make a plan. And I think that just makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess in terms of, you know, even just running on your period, sounds like you're someone who does have more of a heavier period and stuff. What do you tend to go with in terms of sanitary products?
Yeah, I mean, I use an absolute range. You know, tampons are great because you just put them in and you know, as long as they are comfortable, then you don't really have to think about it. You have to think as much about leaking and things like that. If you get the right size for you. You know, there's so many things I use, but generally tampons over sanitary pads, personally.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, keeps it all away and locked in for sure. And you mentioned as well sort of the S&C and the impact that that can sort of have and how that can change. What adaptations do you make or changes do you make in terms of your strength and conditioning program based around your menstrual cycle?
Yeah, I think personally, like I can feel more lethargic, and doing those sort of really explosive moves can be a bit more demanding. So it's definitely just being super aware of that. If I'm doing testing in S&C and I happen to be on menstrual cycle at that point, I'll just make a note of it. And I will just, I think, be more sympathetic with myself. You get the same benefits from doing like slightly different training, all the time. It's not it's about being adaptable, and it's about being, sympathetic with yourself, and sort of changing things if you need to, but not necessarily being hard on yourself if you can't do everything on that at that point. Because at the end of the day, you're still training, you're still there, you're still doing something, you're still having the same, your body is still getting the same benefits as it would if you were doing the same thing week in, week out. And I definitely think that's something that I'd say probably male athletes don't have to think about as much. I think that, yeah, it's a very different life for them, for sure. But yeah, it's just about being aware about it and knowing what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really is figuring out those things. And, it is so true. They get on the start line and they've got one less, major variable that's just taken out the equation. As a female, you're on that start line, and, the hormones change continually, I think, across the whole cycle. So even when you're not bleeding, your body's having a slightly different change to maybe the week before. And so you've always got that to contend with, which, yeah, it definitely is a massive challenge for female athletes. And so I guess, we're moving more to the end of our time now. So a couple of things to wrap up with and reflect. And we've got some listener questions as well. Of course, you had, such a great level of success from such a young age, and that's continued all the way through. How do you think that's affected you? And yeah, how's it affected you really?
I definitely think having like success at a young age is a super big confidence booster. I think that for me, I've just sort of been through enough life experience to know what I love and what I don't like. And I absolutely love athletics, and I love the training, and I really want to be in the position where I can be a professional athlete. And I think that yeah, when you're a lot younger, it can get super serious super quickly doing those GB competitions and international competitions. You can do it once and go, I want to do this every week, and I want to do this every year. And I do think it's important as a young athlete to not put loads of pressure on yourself. You have so much time to be the best athlete you can be, and there's so many barriers, I think, as a young athlete, because you don't live by yourself. You might not necessarily live in an area that has a super amazing athletics facility. So I definitely think that enjoying it is such an important part of the process. If you don't want it to be a draining aspect of your life, you want it to be in part of your life that you absolutely love. And yeah, just really enjoy the small wins for you personally, and yeah, take it all in.
Definitely, yeah. Enjoy those small wins on a personal level. And you mentioned enjoyment there as well. How have you managed to, or have you always managed to keep that at the forefront? Or have there been times where you felt perhaps overtraining or kind of the pressures taking over?
Yeah, I definitely think the pressure is really hard to deal with. There's been a lot of lows for me, especially around injuries and things like that. You know, some days I was like, oh, I can't bother to go for a run. And I think that having the mindset of that, like, no, like I really want to run really well in summer, like doing this one run is going to be like beneficial for me in some sort of way. And I think having that mindset has definitely helped me out quite a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's really good to hear. And so if we've got a couple of questions from listeners. So first up, we've got, what are your goals for this year? I guess we have kind of covered that a bit.
Yeah, definitely want to be at the Olympics. Running some sub 2 times would be great.
Okay. And then we've got, how did you start out, and finally, how did you reach where you are now?
I actually started out doing like district sport athletics in my primary school, which is a long, long, long time ago now. I think I did my first competition when I was 7, 8 years old, just sort of because I was the sporty girl in my year at primary school. And then I joined the athletics academy, Star Trek Academy at Lee Valley. I was really lucky to live super close by, have the indoor and outdoor facility, which definitely really got me into it. I think most clubs have a youth program where they do like all events. I know that at university here we have a youth sort of group that does like all events every Wednesday evening at the university that a couple of the students and a couple of the coaches run. So yeah, it's just about like I joined one of those clubs essentially and kind of went from there, just went up and up and up and up and up and ran faster, competed at bigger competitions and got better every year.
Yeah, no, that's the way to go. And then we've got, have you ever struggled with body image or disordered eating?
Personally, I haven't struggled with disordered eating. I know that it's a super common thing in athletics. I'd say that personally, my body hasn't changed in a lot of years, but I am not your typical, I'd say, skinny distance runner. I think that's a big stereotype that's out there, and that's not me. I have a very powerful body. I train a lot like a power athlete, despite being a distance runner. And I'm, really lucky to be super confident in my body and super confident in my image. But definitely, like, it doesn't help, especially in this age of social media, having certain comments that come across. And I'm just like, that's inappropriate. You shouldn't be saying this. And I'm very lucky to have not experienced that as a young person. I definitely think it's made me more resilient. In terms of dealing with that side of things, because I think social media can be a really toxic environment for a lot of young people, especially as its popularity is on the rise all the time. But yeah, I'm really lucky to have a really supportive friendship network, family network, and I've never been in that position.
No, that's really great to hear. Clearly, you've got the results, you've got the success. It shows staying true to yourself and believing in yourself and what you can do is the way forwards. Because yeah, it is so easy to get caught up on sort of image as opposed to actually the reality of the situation. Okay, then we've got top tips for recovery days.
Top tips for recovery days. I'd say sleep. If you're having a recovery day, have a lie-in, let yourself relax, eat a lot of food. I think that a lot of people sometimes look at recovery days as, oh, I'm not doing any exercise today, but actually it's just as important to be eating loads and fueling your body, because your body will just be in pure muscle building mode at that point. And utilize those days as much as you want to. If you feel like you don't have a lot of time during the week, if you're at school or at uni and you're training, it's a lot. Utilize those days off to catch up with work, or go out and socialize with your friends. There's so many things you can do that don't make you tired or don't impact your training. And I just definitely think keeping that sort of social element in your life is really important.
Yeah, definitely it is. It's having everything going at once, really, or at least the things that are important to you. And so to finish off with now, what would you say, or what are your top 3 most important things that you'd like to share with, say, younger runners, people who want to improve, are looking to have continued success such as yourself?
Definitely think my number one is always enjoyment. You should be coming to training, and it's a painful process, training sometimes, but ultimately you should come out with a sense of satisfaction and a sense of achievement there. I think exercising young people is super important, and finding the right sport for you is super important. Try a whole range of things. I did everything as a young athlete, and ultimately I didn't decide to just do athletics until I was 17, 18. But plenty of people don't start their sport that they're most successful in until they are mid-20s. You have plenty of time. I definitely say that rest and recovery is super important as well. Like, you need to give yourself time to recover. Doing loads and loads of sports can be great, but like, it can really impact your body and make you super, super tired. And then my third point would just be, a lot of people focus on need to be confident in your ability, and feeling the pressure and having anxiety is super common. Everyone experiences it. Like, all the top athletes are going to experience some sort of anxiety. It doesn't make you the odd one out. It makes you a real person, a real human being that has emotions. And reaching out for support. There are so many places you can get support from: your coach, your parents, your family, professionals, if it comes to that. And yeah, definitely just like, don't feel alone in that sort of sense. Negativity is a part of being in athletics, and turning that into positivity is difficult sometimes, but it's achievable. Everyone can do it, and everyone can participate, and everyone deserves to give a chance and, you know, be able to compete or just train.
No, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, some excellent advice there. So enjoy it, keep it versatile, rest and recover, accept you're human and the emotions that come with it, and take action appropriately. No, thank you so much, Izzy. You know, you've clearly got a really level head on you, a lot of, you know, wise words, and, you know, your success has been incredible, and wishing you the absolute best with, you know, that Olympic qualifying situation, and hopefully we'll see you on the start line in Paris.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
No, thank you. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.